Okay, so welcome along to our session today. We're going to look specifically now at the Microsoft 365 environment. So the reality is that what we're seeing today is an ever-changing opportunity, and it's also an ever-changing challenge. So we're seeing the need to keep up to date with technology. A lot of customers have invested in technology that they've maintained for a long period of time. Many have perhaps made it stretch through the pandemic and the situation that we are now. But at the end of the day, it comes down to those with current technology, not necessarily bleeding edge, but those with current technology generally reap the most benefit and are the most productive. So good examples are if your client base was very much on-prem prior to the pandemic, having to switch them all to the cloud in a very short period of time would have been very stressful. If they were already in the cloud largely, then again, it would be business as usual. So there's so many technologies out there to take advantage of, and this does mean that you need to help your customers understand that technology is an investment, it's not an expense. Now, this is, again, hard, I find, in the Australian context versus, say, the US. But you have to help them understand that, having an up-to-date workstation is the same as having an up-to-date phone. I mean, how many people these days have a phone that is older than 2 years? It's very rare. So the idea here is that you need to see it as a benefit to the business. It's going to improve productivity, enable the capabilities, and provide better security. And it is really one of those requirements to run a business, because now we have this, distributed workforce. This trend has been accelerated thanks to the pandemic. People working from home. Now they're largely not going to come back to the business 5 days a week. They're going to start looking to work 2 days, 3 days from home. I've seen a lot of articles, business articles around the fact that a lot of people now are looking at it saying, well, hang on, why do I need to even live near a capital city? Why don't I move to Noosa? In theory, housing is cheaper. I can live on the beach. The kids can have a better lifestyle. As long as I've got a decent internet connection, I can do my job. So there has been this reverse trend driven by the pandemic of people moving away from CBD centres out to remote locations for a better lifestyle. They know that they can pick and choose, they can work remotely, and they're judged on their results, not on their attendance. Now that has meant a drive for more mobility. So we need better phones, we need 5G connections, we need NBN satellite connections. There's all these sort of things flowing through the pipeline here that can be taken advantage of to remold the way work is done. And this is an opportunity for IT resellers to step in there and say, look, we can manage this, we can help you do everything that you need to do with technology. And largely, we don't care where you are. We can support machines, whether in Noosa, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, or effectively anywhere in the world. Now, that has also raised the issue of, okay, well, how do I protect the data? I'm sure many people out there have had questions from their customers saying, well, I've got people working from home and God only knows what machines they're using, and how do I ensure that the data that they're accessing is protected at all time? How do I make sure that they don't just bulk copy everything and waltz off to my competitors with that? And that's a question you probably need to think about and ask inside your own business. The only differentiation between you and everybody else on this call is going to be your unique IP, your processes, your approach to business. The tools are the same, the RMM tools are the same, the products you sell are the same. There's no differentiation except for the value add you provide, and that's locked up largely in the data in your environment. How do you protect that? How do you make sure that that doesn't leave the organization or, again, find its way into the hands of the competitors? Now, the final one, without question, is security is the topic du jour. It's in the news every day. The reality is that I believe is that there's a lot of talk and there's not a lot of action. So, yes, it's become big business. Yes, it's become a major talking point, but why does it still happen? Well, it still happens because people aren't following best practices. They're not configuring the environments. They're not locking things down. They're not using all the tools that are available to them, typically for free. they're looking to buy a single product or a single solution from a vendor to, solve a problem, which really it can't be solved with technology alone. It's a combination here, right? So the real value add is looking at, okay, what standards are you complying with? Because, if you have customers who are paying for cyber insurance, those companies are the ones that are going to come asking you questions if there is a breach. And it's going to be the lawyers of those insurance companies who are going to want to know what your credentials are, what standards you followed, how you set this up, because they're going to be looking to shift liability in another direction so they can minimize their costs. So again, have a think about that, how are we going to do this and do it in a professional manner? Because security is hard. Security is something that you'll need to keep up to date. You'll need to make sure, and you need to take an approach of, this concept of, zero trust, which means you have to assume that every day there's going to be a breach, right? And how do we deal with that? How do we manage that? And how do we make sure that these sort of environments are secure to best practices? Now, above and beyond all this, one of the biggest challenges is going to be simply the range of demographics we have in the workforce today. So you've still got the traditional belt and suspenders people, the people who are used to saving everything in their C drive, in their My Documents, and creating an infinite array of folders within folders within folders to store all their documents, because that's what they're most comfortable with. They're very much a filing cabinet sort of mentality. At the other end of the spectrum, those people coming into the workforce now largely don't focus on structure. They store everything on their desktop, and the way that they get to the information they want is using search. So we need to be able to accommodate these people through that whole demographic. So we need to be able to look at the belt and suspenders people, allowing them to be productive and do their job, but also, the millennials coming into the workforce whose expectations are for the latest tools, the latest capabilities, all the things they're used to in the apps on their phone. And doing that and maintaining security around all that is going to be probably the biggest challenge you'll face, and dealing with that. Because remember, the trend here, this is what you need to think about. The trend is that the belt and suspenders people eventually are going to move on. They're not going to be part of the business world, where the millennials will begin to move into positions of power, positions of influence inside the organization. And that's the expectation that they will have for their business, is that we want the technology to serve us. We want it to work in a way that we're using on the socials, or that we're using outside our business life. Now, of course, statistics can prove anything, and the reality is that more and more people are spending more and more time working with those who aren't part of their organization, especially in SMB. So, architects are working with builders, who are working with lawyers, who are working with tradies. All of these people have their own emails, their own environment, their own devices. How do we collaborate effectively with those people? These people, I said, are moving around. They're using all sorts of mobile devices. And now, as a technology person, you not only have to support and manage Windows environments, Microsoft environments, you need to manage and maintain iOS, Android, and potentially Linux as well in this environment. So there are real challenges out there as we move towards a mobile world. It's not a homogeneous environment. It's very much a mixed environment with lots and lots of options, which again make it challenging. And we talked about the fact that cybercrime, it's like when you're talking to customers about the fact that they are a target, the reality is the criminals are only after money, right? They don't care how they get the money. If they get 10 customers at 5,000, that's maybe easier than one customer at 50,000. So, at the end of the day, it's only going to basically be the money that they're after. And that's the way you need to help your customer understand is if you have money in your bank account today, be it $100, be it $1,000, be it $100,000, they're going to be coming after you, especially if you're an easy target. So again, they're looking for the easiest path to revenue, okay? And anybody who doesn't think they're a target is definitely fooling themselves, because again, if you were basically, if you had a wad of cash in your wallet and you landed at an airport in some foreign country and then started walking the back streets, you would be a target, right? So at the end of the day, it's the money that these people are after. So take a step back and have a think about, what does the environment of your customers look like today? Is it a mismatch of some on-prem, old versions of Windows, old versions of Office, different versions of PCs? Some customers seem to think that PCs are made of gold, and the older they get, the more valuable they get. The reality is again, they're a tool. They wear out. They're not applicable. They're not getting the best value for your money. Now, in today's business environment, look at things like what the government is offering. The government is offering effectively, tax write-offs for infrastructure. So moving to a nice new modern device can basically be something you can do within this tax year and receive the full, deduction benefit. Now, on the other side of the coin here, one of the challenges, especially with infrastructure, is going to be the lack of supply. So I'm sure everybody here has been affected in some way, shape, or form around the inability to get, chips, devices. You're on the waiting line, back ordered. That's only going to continue for the foreseeable future. So the impact of that is, Johnny's not going to get an Xbox for Christmas probably, or a PlayStation 5, but it also means you may have trouble sourcing, new machines, new devices in this environment. Now, that said, here is another door of opportunity that has opened up. So in a world where you can't get physical devices, well, what about something like Windows 365, which will give you the capability to have a device managed, maintained from Microsoft on a per month basis, rather than having to buy physical hardware, which you can then access on any device. All right. So in essence, Windows 365 is going to give you that capability to basically set up and run a virtual device. In that environment, do you really need a new device? So again, there are your options there. But the idea here is you want to make it easy for yourself. You want to make it easy for your customers. And part of that means, okay, what about the consistency here? What about, reducing the amount of variables here? Having lots and lots of different routers, having lots and lots of different machines means different drivers, different problems, different suppliers, right? The way to true profitability is to be simple, is to make it as simple as possible and really focus down on that. There's not a lot of money made in selling, the supermarket variety of options here. The only people that make money in a commodity market like that are the biggest of the bigs, like the Amazons and so on. So Amazon, yes, does well because it can automate, it can apply its size to get better pricing, to deliver that and take advantage of what it's built over the years. But you cannot compete as a small business against the likes of someone like Amazon. So again, you need to think about, okay, what's the value add that my business adds for a customer? All right. So this is where you have to think about, and again, focus. And for a lot of the messaging that I see out there, a lot of the messaging is, I'll buy our product, add our product, add, which I think is incorrect, especially the smaller you are. I think the smaller you are, the more you need to focus and say, look, is this really generating us profit? Is it profitable? Is it something? And remember, profit just isn't purely the dollars. It's also the time, the effort, the maintenance. And I'm sure we all have systems out there that customers are using that for whatever reason they've decided to hold and maintain. And these are effectively costing money because they have to be maintained. They have to have special arrangements. So again, the decision here is that the smaller you are, the less likely you are to compete in a commodity market, the more you should be specializing and really doubling down on what you do really well that nobody else can do. So that's the idea here, is sit back and have a think, is, okay, am I trying to be everything to everybody? A better approach is to say, what am I really good at? What am I going to get paid well for? Now, you could be really good at, fixing PCs, but at the end of the day, there's no money in that because they're throwaway and replace. So there is that decision to be made. So again, beware that the more you are doing, the broader your offering, probably the less profitable it's going to be, basically, over time. So the idea here is to basically think about, the Microsoft 365 as your base level product. Hopefully everybody here is using it, selling it, but I think you'd all agree that there is so much more that can be done with this product. There are so many more opportunities inside this product that you may not be taking advantage of. Now, that's an opportunity without doubt. There's no doubt that there is lots of opportunity in there, but that is also a threat, because if someone else can walk into the business and provide a better value statement and they're already using a common product like Microsoft 365, well, then it means the customer is, there's less resistance, there's less friction for them to move somewhere else. So one of the examples I use is Power BI. So Power BI is a dashboarding capability that is free from Microsoft. It can report on any data with bright, pretty graphs, and think of it like, Power Pivot on steroids. That's a very, very impressive product to go and show people that write the checks about what can be done for free, and then use that as a leverage capability to push the incumbent outside of the business. So as much opportunity as is provided by Microsoft 365 also represents a threat, because again, it's a standard product that you can sell, your competitor can sell, and also Microsoft can sell direct. So what's the value add you are putting on top of what the user can purchase themselves? All right. So hopefully in essence, you understand, or you're across the fact that there is enterprise and business, and there's also education if you are in the education space. In the enterprise space, we have E5, E3, and F1, okay, with different capabilities inside. E5 obviously being the premium SKU. Now, the idea here is that, focused on the SMB, as I mentioned, we have an on-prem environment traditionally still maybe. We have applications now largely moving to the cloud. So your accounting's moving to the cloud. Some document sharing maybe, collaboration. So we've now got both of these environments out there. We've also got multiple devices from multiple operators, operating systems, iOS, Android, Windows, Mac. They're all out there as well. And then we've got the data, which can sit anywhere on all of these devices. So that's a significant challenge for any business, large or small, to manage. And in SMB, it's even harder. There's no question that this is really, really tough. So as I said, the idea here is to sit back and think about, this is the existential threat that is going to continue to increase. So if you add in, IoT, Internet of Things, you add in all these connectivities that are happening, then all of these create additional points that can be exploited and used against us. So think about the environment, 10 years, 15 years ago, when probably your accounting system was largely paper. Today, it's all automated. If you can't do your payroll on, Friday or the end of the month, it's going to be very, very tough on the business. So we have these single points of failure that a lot of people don't realize until well after the fact. And that's the value that you can provide in the experience to go to customers and say, well, what would it mean if you were unable to do your payroll? What would be the ramifications? Or if you couldn't put your tax statements in, what sort of impact would that have? Or what would the loss of all your customer information require? What would the impact of your reputation be? So we've seen lots of examples of that happening. So Robinhood, which is a trading app available in the US, they recently had a breach, and they seem to believe that user information, email addresses, and credit cards and social security numbers escaped, but they aren't sure. So again, what's the reputational damage done of those sort of examples? You really don't want to find out. So as I mentioned, the idea is to bring these all together and focus on a solution, and largely this is going to be a focus of moving more and more to the cloud. I don't believe there is a need to have an on-prem identity manager anymore. There's no practical reason to have an on-prem domain controller anymore. It can all be done from the cloud. It should be done from the cloud because there are far more capabilities and there's much better security. So that is the direction that the SMB definitely is heading. The removal of all on-prem infrastructure, and for all of it to be totally virtualized. And my advice to you is to look around standardizing on a number of offerings. So what we see out there is that resellers are treating each customer individually in their requirements rather than saying, well, hang on, we've got this really good bundle, right, that we've created, our gold, silver, and bronze package, and the silver one would suit you or the bronze one would suit you. No, what they're doing is they're going in and they're customizing each and every individual one, and that's a lot of work. So for anybody who has done a quote, you know what it's like to go in and do all these individual line items and do a quote, and then for the underlying products to change, you have to redo the quote. It will be much easier to say, look, we've worked out our pre-packaged products, gold, silver, and bronze, and these are going to market. Now, you can buy a silver, then add on a few bits to get what you want, but giving us the ability to focus on a gold, silver, and bronze than doing a custom offering every single time makes a lot more sense. All right. So again, this is an opportunity to be smart in the market and look what you're offering, because, you know, at the end of the day, the customer doesn't care about the technology. The customer doesn't care about the licenses. The customer just cares about, A, can it do what you say, right, and help my business, and then what will it cost? That's all they care about, right? How it achieves that, I don't care. So again, creating these packages can make life a lot easier for everybody. So again, focusing on the Microsoft 365 business solution, hopefully everybody is aware that it has the ability to do modern collaboration. You can do it anywhere. We've got web access, we've got desktop access, we've got mobile access. We've got the ability to have all the security as we've always had. And again, where you make your money is anything that you say is simplified for business, that is going to need an IT provider to come in and add the polish, to add the policies, to add the lockdown, to add the security, to add the real value to help the customer be up and running. Customers, and you in general as well, don't have time to sit down and learn and read manuals and do all this. They need a quick start. How do I use Teams? Or how do I get started with Sway? How do I get started with Stream? Right, that's the value add, to help those customers get a quick start into their environment. That's the value add, not selling them a license or selling them a box. It's about show me how to use it to get the most out of this. So obviously it comes with Office on the desktop. It also comes with email and calendaring. So I can't tell you how many tradies I see out there. Like, I was using a towing service, or recommended a towing service for a car recently, and you know, they're called so-and-so, Smithfield Towing, but their email address is smithfieldtowing@gmail.com. So they've got a domain and they've got a website on the domain, but their email is still tied to Gmail. Right, again, there's a lot of that. There's so many opportunities to go in there and provide value around and to help the customer understand the value of doing this, because they own the domain name. They just haven't bothered or haven't seen the benefit of, using it. So the reason they have Gmail is because they think that's the only way they can get it on their phone, right? So this is the value add. So every time you see a truck or a vehicle go past with a Gmail address and it's a business, that should be your opportunity to step in and say, look, here's what we can do for you. Here's the value add that we can do to tidy all this stuff up. They may not take that, but I guarantee you a lot of businesses probably would. So we've got the ability to store large volumes of files and sync them back to the desktop. We've got data protection. So we can, for example, prevent documents that have, tax file numbers, credit card numbers, invoice numbers being sent outside the organization. Whether it's by mistake or whether it's by intent, we can prevent that. We can, again, get access to all of this stuff in an admin. And we also have the ability that we don't have to manage the infrastructure. We don't have to worry about the servers, the patching, the updating of that backend. It's all provided to you. So with the removal of that, it's like, again, where's the value add? What value add do you provide to the customer that they couldn't do themselves by also simply just purchasing the product? So the idea, as I've mentioned, is think about minimizing the solution here, right? Yes, we want the flexibility, but again, when people go shopping, they go for a product or a function. They don't go and look at all the bazillion different options. Typically, think about the last time you bought a car. When you buy a car, you've sort of one or two models, or it needs to have this many seats, or this fast acceleration, or this color. you've got a general idea of what you want and you're trying to get something that fits to that plus or minus a bit generally. You don't go and pursue the whole car market, okay, and evaluate every single individual item. You typically have an idea a problem it needs to solve, or a need for you that it needs to solve. Same thing here, right? Same thing with a small business. Study your customers, right? And there are going to be customers that fall outside these boundaries. Now, in that case, you have the option to create a customized solution, or you can say, you know what, your business doesn't really fit our business model. We'll hand you off, or we'll refer you to somebody else who will. So again, the benefits here are around focus. The more focused you are, the deeper you can go, the better products you can provide, the less hassles, the more standardization you can bring to effect on your market and stand out from the jack of all trades. And I will tell you, in all honesty, you make more money saying no than you do saying yes. Being discerning and choosing who you want to go with, knowing your market well, is always going to give you or present far more value. Now, you'll get a copy of all these slides. And again, if you're asking about the specifics in this, again, you'll get a copy of these slides after, so you can go in and have a look at all the referrals, all the items that I have listed here. But you'll see over the period of Microsoft 365, it has added a lot of features, right? And I'll speak about the major feature it added recently, but the value keeps increasing. Now, yes, the price will go up shortly, but the price of everything is going up. Inflation is rampant at the moment for various reasons. Your costs, your fuel costs, your, the product you buy, everything, the milk, everything is going up. Okay, it's just a fact of life. So again, you need to look at the macro environment and say, well, hang on, when was the last time I actually raised my prices? When I talk to a lot of resellers, they're still stuck with a price from the 1990s because they're afraid to put it up because they'll lose business. In that case, you're falling further and further behind, right? All the expenses keep increasing. The rent, like I said, the fuel costs, the travel costs, item costs, everything's going up. And if your prices, the price you charge is static, then you're actually falling behind. And that's a good way to go out of business. So one of the standard policies I have is every year I review my pricing and generally will put it up. I won't put it up much, but I will generally increase it a few percentage points based on the CPI. And I do that every year at the beginning of the year. And if people say, wow, you've increased your prices, so yeah, it's a standard policy I have. Every year I review it and they look at it and say, okay, well, if it's something you do standard, then that's the way it is because everything is going up. So again, the first step in all of this I would suggest to you is to basically sit back and evaluate the prices. What are you charging for this? Are you charging or trying to charge the cost to you plus a percentage point, right? Are you trying to be a Harvey Norman, a JB Hi-Fi, or are you providing value as a specialist that can't be matched by anybody else in the field? It's the difference between being a GP and being a specialist. When you go to see a GP, you're in and out as soon as possible. It's not a very good experience. It's always late. I'm sure everybody's had that experience. When you go to a specialist, you've got to book in months ahead. The room's much nicer. You get much better attention, but the price is much higher. So again, the smaller you are, I would suggest the more like a specialist you need to be because you can't compete in that commodity market, and it's not a very good experience. So in the Microsoft 365 business space, we've got Business Basics, Business Standard, and Business Premium. So Basic is the cloud applications, Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, and Standard adds the desktop applications, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Business Premium is the add-on from Standard, but also with a number of security features and management, including, Intune, Defender, conditional access, and all those sort of capabilities. So you'll see here that you have the capability, and all of this is included in the Business Premium product, plus some more stuff that I will talk about. Intune being a key one for the modern way to manage not only PCs, but iOS, Android, and the complete environment. So one of the key skills you should have or you should be looking at developing is the capability around modern device management, Intune, MDM, endpoint manager, all that sort of stuff. And it's included for free inside the business premium environment. Now, again, I'm not going to go into the specifics of each individual licensing. You'll get a copy of these slides to look through, and they're probably already out of date now. But you'll see that Microsoft 365 Business is a far better value statement than I believe than E3. So to me, I'd be specializing on two offerings. My gold offering would be E5. My silver offering would be Business Premium, because the silver offering is the one you want most people to go for. It's the middle offering. Okay, so again, I'd be going to market with a gold, silver, and a bronze. The gold will be based on E5, the silver will be based on Business Premium, and the bronze probably based on Business Standard. Okay, and I will be building an offering around that, not even mentioning Business Premium, Microsoft 365. It would simply be a case of what business problem does it solve? What level of this do you need to solve your business problems? Now, the big announcement that came out of Ignite, which is a week or two ago, was that now Microsoft Defender for Business, which is a rebadged version of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, will now be available and included for free in Business Premium. All right, so you're now going to get the integrated enterprise, AV, EDR, all of this sort of protection built into the product going forward. So if you've been buying a third-party AV solution, you're going to need to probably have a think about this, because you're going to get all these capabilities inside the product for free coming, we expect probably mid-December to January. This will start being rolled out. Now, you can buy Defender for Business as a standalone SKU, about $3, I think US is the pricing they're talking about. So you can add this onto any existing one, but if you have Business Premium, this will be included, and that makes Business Premium an extremely attractive offering, especially for those advanced SMB customers. So the challenge from your side of the fence is always going to now be around, okay, well, with this product being added, what's my skill set? Am I up to speed and skilled in using Microsoft Defender? How much do I know about Defender for Endpoint? So there is something that is going to be necessary to be able to deploy this at scale and to do it correctly. So again, I've included in the slides here the comparison between Defender for Business, the Defender for Endpoint P1 and P2, which are also available as well. I'm not going to dwell on any of these items. We'll talk about Defender in more detail as we go along, but you can see that Microsoft Defender for Business includes a lot of the functionality and is a better bet than P1. So again, for an included product, it is huge amount of value. So I think that's a real benefit here. So what I might do here is, I think that George wants to have some words with you about Ingram's offering, and we'll do that before we do take a break. So I will pause here, and I think I'll throw over to George to grab the banner and basically run.
Thanks, Robert. I'm just going to share my screen very quickly. I just wanted to go through a couple of things, good opportunity to sort of help update everybody on what's going on. Hopefully you can see my screen now. Just wanted to highlight a couple of major announcements and things that are going on. So Windows 365 has now become available on the Ingram Marketplace. Microsoft Defender, as Robert mentioned, I think it's looking at a launch for early next year. Something else that was announced by Microsoft in October was a 12-month free subscription to Azure AD Premium P2 for partners. So it's not for customers, this is for partners, for you to be able to use that in your business for 12 months until October next year. Another thing to highlight is that Microsoft Certification Week is back, and it's running in December, from December 13 to 16. Good luck getting that done while you're getting ready for Christmas, but it's there. And a couple of other issues. These are more Ingram offers. So we've got a number of offers around selling E5s until the end of the year. There's a cashback when you sell Microsoft 365 Business Premium, M365 E3 and E5s. There is a 30-day free for those services when you procure that. Audio conferencing add-on has been, it's available free and it's been extended to the end of February. And Microsoft Business Voice has a discount as well. And then finally, just some of the things around some of the changes that are going on with Microsoft. The open licensing program will end at the end of this year. The Microsoft price changes that Robert's been referring to a little bit, those are happening from March, and the new commerce experience will also kick off in March. And contact us if you want to know more about NCE. We have some very good resources to bring you up to speed. There's been copious amounts of webinars and workshops that are being done around NCE, and there are some promotions that have been announced around the new commerce experience that Microsoft 365, Office 365, and the Dynamics and Power Platform products are moving to. So that's all I have. Oh, and there's one other thing. I know that a lot of partners are talking about having to change their contracts. If you do a lot of contracts with customers, on our cloud marketplace, there is an organization called IT Agree. They are basically a legal service as a service. So they basically provide you with 5 standardized contracts. They've taken into account all the changes that Microsoft is going to be doing or is doing now with the new commerce experience. And you can subscribe to a set of contracts on an annual basis. And obviously, if you don't need them for the second year, you can just let the subscription go. But you can keep up to date and make sure that you've got robust and risk-free, or at least your risks mitigated with very solid contracts designed for the IT environment. So IT Agree, they're actually a New Zealand-based company. You'll find them on our marketplace. Happy to take questions throughout. Otherwise, I think Robert will take our break.
Cool. All right. Thanks, George. And remember, all those questions, please basically refer to Ingram about that. We'll dive into a lot of that stuff in a bit more depth as we get through. But just to round things off before we, again, look at taking a 10-minute break here. And I'd probably help if I shared my screen back. So let me do that. Okay. So just to finish things off here, the question is that, as we come out of this lockdown situation, pandemic, and we're obviously in this new normal they talk about, it's going to be very different from what we've seen before. We're going to probably see a splurge of spending with businesses cashed up, moving back into their offices in some way, shape or form, things opening up, more demand. So there is this opportunity to, again, recraft yourself and look to the future and, what opportunities are there. Is doing the same old thing the same old way going to give you the satisfaction or be as profitable as it used to be? Or is there potentially a need to start looking and thinking about, well, I'm not making money here, or this is going to be a challenge, or these are the opportunities that I see, around the marketplace. So, for example, Microsoft's big push to partners is around the Power Platform, the automation, the low-code, no-code style solutions. Again, you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but it is something you could be incorporating into your environment. Yes, security is going to become more and more important, but we're probably going to see larger and larger organizations, muscle in on the space, provide SOC services. We're probably going to see things like insurance companies offering services that will give discounts on premiums if you take up their security services, auditing services. So again, there's a lot to consider here, but at the end of the day, I would suggest that you really can't go on the old way prior to, the COVID situation. Things have changed so dramatically that you should be looking at your own business model and asking questions. Okay, what do I need to do to benefit from, the great reset for the time period going forward? All right. So with that, what I will do is just pause and see if there are any questions that I can answer. while I get my clock in order here and reset the time here. All right, so there's some questions for George. So I don't see anything that I have to particularly answer. So what I'll do is, again, I will end the recording for this first hour,